Over the past 48 hours, Kenyan political scene has had two major conversations, and we have since detailed them here at the People's Mirror. One was the conversation on who will now ascend to the second position within the broad-based camp in the 2027 major polls. This was coming as a result of all the three contenders or people that are eyeing the number 2 seat behind Ruto have since delivered in their backyard in the recently concluded by-election. And if we start with Governor Wanga, who is from the ODM party and who is also in the broad-based arrangement, calling for nothing short than the deputy presidency position if they decide to now merge into a grand coalition into the 2027 major polls. Governor Wanga single-handedly delivered in her backyard against all odds, including challenges from her own deputy to the broad-based arrangement. Then there is Musalia Mudavadi, who previously had a seat in Malava, and the seat was being held by the ANC party. Now, since the ANC party was dissolved, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi also delivered the win of Malava to Honorable Ruto's UDA. Now, he's also one of the closest right-hand men of Ruto and is eyeing that seat in 2027. Then there is the current deputy president who was also contesting against the former deputy president in Mbeere North. And Kindiki, even if the voting was marred with violence and intimidation, was reported by the IEBC to have delivered that win, of course, to Leonard Wamudende Njeru. Now, all these three individuals that are eyeing the second position in the broad-based arrangement have been the talk of town in the past 48 hours. And then Kenyan political scene shifted to the statements that were made on Sunday but had not found their life in the Kenyan political limelight. The statements of zoning Nairobi. And so these statements of zoning Nairobi by the DCP and Wiper party have now become the major talk of town in the past 24 hours. At the People's Mirror, we want to take a look at the statement, whether or not they were made intentionally and the effect that they have, not only to the broad-based arrangement, but to the united opposition as a coalition ahead of the 2027 major polls. Now, when Rigathi was making these statements, first, context is important. He was making these statements in Kariobangi North Ward. And he was making these statements as a part of a celebration mood that was coming as a result of the fact that DCP party that has not been here for a year had delivered a win within the city. The win was the seat of the Kariobangi North Ward MCA. And so while Rigathi Gachagua went to a Thanksgiving ceremony, he made statements about zoning Nairobi. Now, these statements could be given two-dimensional look. In one-dimensional look, you'd say that Mr. Rigathi made them very intentionally, knowing that they would rattle the united opposition and would have the effect of realigning the arrangement within the broad-based government ahead of who will take Nairobi in 2027. But another dimensional look to it would be that it was a statement made out of excitement, considering the fact that Rigathi was addressing a team or a congregant that had just delivered a win to the DCP party. And now, to show the might of the party moving into the major polls, it was important to now say something bigger than the MCA position. But either way, they have had the effect of rattling the members of the united opposition and also realigning the arrangement within the broad-based government ahead of how Nairobi will be held in 2027. So before we go further into the reactions of parties within the united opposition and within the government end, let us take a look at Nairobi as a county. Nairobi is a metropolitan county. It's a very important county to the seat of power, in that it's where the seat of power sits. The State House, majorly, the largest one, is in Nairobi. The Parliament is in Nairobi. The Senate is in Nairobi. The Supreme Court is in Nairobi. So 3 arms of government sits in Nairobi. And it's a metropolitan that has across all the tribes of Kenya living in it. Its population is steady. And so when you're coming into Nairobi to lead or to zone it, it means something beyond to the electorates. It means something to the confines of power. And most times, you have seen that the ruling party has tried as much as possible to have a grip of Nairobi under their arms. Now, the history of Nairobi under the devolution, the creation of the devolution, stems back to post-2012 elections, and the first governor of Nairobi becomes Governor Evans Kidero. For the period that Kidero was the leader of Nairobi, Nairobi was mad with allegations of corruption, and people were wondering whether or not the second governor would stem into that particular space and do away with corruption. City Hall was being described as a hub of corruption. Now, Honorable Evans Kidero did his one term and left after serving as the first governor of Nairobi, handed over that position to Governor Mike Sonko. Governor Mike Sonko first had issues with Rigathi, who was his vice at some time, deputy governor of this county. And towards the end of the period of serving as the governor of Nairobi, Governor Mike Sonko handed over power back to the national government through an arrangement that they entered into with the ruling party then. And so after Sonko exit the stage, Honorable Mbadi, who was actually not a politician but a military officer, took over the leadership of Nairobi County and sailed the Nairobi County all through to the 2022 elections. During that time, there were talks to make Nairobi County a special county independent of the other 47 counties, so that its leadership or its management would be a cooperation of both the national government and the county of Nairobi. But in 2022, just like every other county, Nairobi again had a new governor, Governor Sakaja, whose governorship has been marred with allegations of insufficient service delivery. And you remember sometimes back, prior to Raila Odinga's death, even there were talks of impeachment motion that were being prepared to oust Governor Sakaja from his seat. Now, all camps are looking at Nairobi's gubernatorial seat in 2027, including ODM, where Babu Owino has showed his interest. There is a gentleman called Bazenga who is doing posters around the country asking people to take votes looking at that seat of the governor. Now, there is Moses Kuria getting into that scene, and we will detail a later episode on the gubernatorial contest of Nairobi. But other than that, now the DCP and the Wiper Party are making a move to actually zone this Nairobi and block everyone else out of it. Now let's go back to the statements, the motive behind it, and the reactions that have come since it was made. The statement that was made by Rigathi Gachagua was that we have talked with the Wiper Party leader, quoting the statements of Rigathi Gachagua, and the Wiper Party leader has agreed that the DCP party will take the governor position of Nairobi, the Senate position of Nairobi, and the women rep positions of Nairobi. And other than that, the constituency positions, the 16 or 17 of them, will also be shared between Wiper and DCP. After that, the MCA positions will be shared, in that 76 out of the entire number of the MCA seats in Nairobi will go to the DCP party. Now, after he made that statement, Kenyan political scene went on fire, because this proposed zoning deal takes over key positions in Nairobi. And it takes it not only from the broad-based arrangement, but from the other members of the party, other members of the United Opposition Coalition, that is being the UPA party, the DAP Kenya party, the Jubilee party. We have the Wiper Democratic Party itself, and the Wiper Patriotic Front rather, and the Democratic Party itself. So there will be no slots in Nairobi that Rigathi intends to give to any other united opposition principle. He just intends to get into this arrangement of Nairobi with Wiper and his party, the DCP party. And he has insisted that it was their arrangement with the Wiper party to rescue the major seats of Nairobi, considering the fact that the Wiper party, according to Rigathi Gachagua, the Wiper leader, Honorable Kalonzo, is the individual that helped Raila consolidate the influence that he has of Nairobi. So the reaction has been almost instantaneous, because immediately after this statement was made, the Wiper, Jubilee, DAP and UAP moved fast to declare or distance themselves from the positions of Rigathi Gachagua. So the opposition seems like the statement that was made by Rigathi Gachagua immediately triggered an immediate revolt among them, because how they each individually responded and quickly shows that they did not intend to associate themselves with the statements that were already made by Gachagua. And these parties are now saying that these statements have an effect of actually destabilizing the united opposition, considering that they were very exclusionary and they were not discussed within the chambers of the united opposition. It looks like a move that will edge now the united opposition towards a point where we can witness weakening of unity within this opposition, and that is very, very tragic, because if there could be a weakening of unity now, which is almost a year and a half ahead of the election, then that would be really bad for the come 2027 major polls. So we have explained the context to you, that it was said in Kariobangi in a church as part of celebration of the fact that the DCP party had secured a seat of the MCA in Kariobangi North Ward, penetrating the historic backyard of the ODM party. And so in that particular spirit, it needed to confirm to the electorates of Kariobangi North that this party that rather they had trusted in also had the capability of delivering major seats within Nairobi in the major election. So it seems like Rigathi Gachagua is actually very hungry to replace or take over the backyard of Raila Odinga, looking at it dimensionally with how DCP fronted candidates. Magarini Coast has been predominantly a Raila Odinga backyard, and DCP became second strong in that particular contest, where the DCP party was fronting a member of parliament against ODM. In that area, ODM won, but very closely against the DCP party. Then you take a look at Narok County, Narok Township Ward. Narok County has historically been, the Ma community have been voting ODM for quite some time. So this has been a Raila Odinga backyard. But now the center, the town itself of the entire county now has a DCP candidate, or rather has a DCP MCA that has been elected by the people, showing how Rigathi also tried to infiltrate the influence of ODM in the Narok area. Then comes Nairobi, of course, Kariobangi being part of the areas that have been dominantly dominated by the ODM party for quite some time. And there was even an ODM candidate in that area that was being campaigned for by the Secretary General of the ODM party. And Rigathi went ahead and secured that seat with his DCP. So it shows some hunger to replace the Raila's backyards through this small party that has been here for just like 6 months. And the motive is that while he does this, he will be infiltrating the broad-based arrangement. And when now the major elections come in 2027, if ODM will have lost its key backyard rather to DCP according to their strategic plan, then the major election or the major seat will be easy to win. So zoning is part of the way that he wants to do this. He wants to block Nairobi entirely out of other contestants within the united opposition and fix it alongside Wiper, so that if either ODM or UDA positions a candidate in Nairobi, they will be facing the wrath of Rigathi Gachagua's cohort. And you see, zoning worked against Raila in 2022 because Raila also had an idea of zoning certain parts of the country to the parties or to certain parties in the coalition, and it was contested on the ground that then these silent parties, these small parties, then felt like it would only be a playground for bigger players, leaving no room for small parties to actually thrive. So for a success of a coalition in 2022, zoning worked against Raila Odinga, and so Rigathi Gachagua is using zoning this time as an advantage for him, saying that the population of Nairobi is dominantly Kikuyu, Luya, Luo and Kamba. A unity of Kikuyu and Kamba, exclusive of everyone else, will deliver the 3 seats of Nairobi to the DCP and will now give room for the other members of the united opposition to also zone other areas. Now, Gachagua has triggered a backlash within the opposition, with a number of the parties now feeling sidelined, and individually, the Wiper party through Kalonzo has reacted to this. Kalonzo has been dismissive, saying that the opposition has so many members who have to be accommodated, and there is no way that just DCP and Wiper can say that they are going to zone Nairobi. So this puts Rigathi Gachagua again in very bad light, because after celebrating that it was a conversation with Kalonzo, Kalonzo now comes out to say very dismissive decisively that this is wrong and room should be given to the rest of the members of the united opposition to also be accommodated. But other members of the Wiper Patriotic Front, close allies of Kalonzo, including Senator Maanzo, have also responded to this statement, and Maanzo now looks at this move as one that has the direct effect of toppling the united opposition. He says that the major move should be that united opposition should come together to front strong candidates in Nairobi at the exclusion of everyone else, and not to say that two parties within the united opposition should take Nairobi at the expense of everyone else. Senator Maanzo is also a lawyer and who is actually accused for having stolen ODM registration documents in 2007. He's a close ally of Kalonzo, and so the statements that he's making are actually statements that you directly attribute to Kalonzo. Maanzo now says that the conversation should be fronting one strong candidate, as I have said, and the conversation should not be about segregating the united opposition alongside those lines. He says that doing that will have the effect of toppling and exposing the weakness of the united opposition way early ahead of the major polls in 2027. What has the DAP Kenya said? The Democratic Alliance Party for Kenya Secretary General Mr. Eseli Simiyu has also responded, and he has said that the comments of Gachagua are personal view which do not reflect the voice of the united opposition. Of course, the united opposition has a spokesperson called Mukisa Kitui. If it was a voice of the united opposition, then they would have communicated through their secretariat. And now Mr. Eseli Simiyu, who is also the Secretary General of the DAP Kenya Party, distances the DAP Kenya Party from the statements of Rigathi Gachagua and says they are personal and do not reflect in any way the view of the opposition. What are the other parties saying? The Jubilee Party has reacted. Jeremiah Kioni has said that Jubilee will front candidates everywhere in the country. He has dismissed the statements of Rigathi Gachagua, saying Rigathi Gachagua has a disdain for other parties within this united opposition, and so this exposes some of the cracks within the united opposition that are least talked about, because now he says that Rigathi Gachagua has been referring to Jubilee as the red wheelbarrow party, and now with this small party that has not won any substantive seat, he wants the entire Nairobi segregated for him within the arrangement of the united opposition, echoing what Jeremiah Kioni keeps saying, that he has a disdain for all the other parties within the united opposition, and he has the superiority complex issue within the arrangement with the other co-principals. So Jeremiah dismissed the allegations of Rigathi and says they are going to front candidates in every part of the country. Kioni now warns the attacks by Gachagua, and he says that these particular statements by Rigathi Gachagua that are not discussed within the united opposition, and of course when Rigathi goes ahead and says that individuals like Kalonzo have agreed yet they have not agreed, depicts him as a liar and now shows him as not the figure that existed just prior to these particular by-elections. Perhaps it's a political move to regain influence, but now if the members of the united opposition are distancing themselves from those statements, then they only have an effect of hurting the personality that he is rather than reshaping it. Now he says that Gachagua calls Jubilee the red wheelbarrow, and now the UPA has also reacted. UPA is the United Progressive Alliance. Their chairperson Mr. Nyambega Gisesa says that every part and every party has a role to play within the united opposition, and so there is no one supreme party within the united opposition, and so they intend as UPA party to also have a share of Nairobi if either of the candidates decide to run for that seat under their ticket. Ngujiri, who is a member of the Jubilee Party, has also responded, and Ngujiri says that there is no way that a small party that has never won anything substantive would dictate an exclusive city zoning. So Ngujiri says that Rigathi's party is still small, has not won anything other than an MCA seat, trusting it with the entire Nairobi to the expense of the united opposition might deliver a win or a lose. But independent observers now are saying that this particular zoning idea might have the effect of working for or against the united opposition. Members affiliated to Rigathi Gachagua has defended this position, saying that come 2027 and forming the coalition, this is including Embakasi Member of Parliament Mr. Wambuga, who is The members affiliated to Rigathi Gachagua have actually said that this particular zoning thing is a good idea, saying that forming the coalition come 2027 will require that certain things be given and certain things be taken. And so he says to actually deliver a systematic win, parties need to zone certain areas while focusing on the major goal. That way, more seats will go to the united opposition and maybe the major seat too. So they're looking at the statement by Rigathi Gachagua as actually statements that are well placed, saying that zoning is actually necessary for certain parties to agree within the united opposition to increase their influence in the region and to ensure that even when these particular elections are being held, they do not go against each other. Our take at the People's Mirror is that zoning is a very interesting thing, and the move by Maanzo that if zoning is to be done, then let it become a united opposition agreement or a broad-based arrangement agreement, not of one party excluding other parties. Nairobi has 2 Jubilee Member of Parliaments now, 1 from Wiper, 8 from ODM, 4 from UDA, and 1 independent candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, moving into 2027, talks of zoning will increase, and here at the People's Mirror, we will be digesting it for you as it happens. It's been a pleasure recapping that for you. Until the next episode.